Hello, my name is Elisa Edwards, and I will be discussing the themes from engaging the African diaspora in K through 12 education. The article begins with the author defining the African diaspora as a concept and goes on to share that if not for the obstacles faced by people within the African diaspora, the understanding of culture and identity would not have occurred. So, a small group of educators and administrators recognized that there was a gap in understanding the African diaspora, specifically for students in middle school and high school. So, the African Diaspora Fellow Program was created. The mission of this program is to train and educate teachers on how to adequately and accurately educate students on the African diaspora. There were a series of steps this program took to collect the funding as well as the right resources to begin this program. A lot of thought also went into creating the curriculum, because if you're going to educate teachers who you want to later educate students, you have to present the right material and steps to do so. The speakers of this program broke down their topics into four main topics. The first being the transatlantic slave trade and slavery, or enslavement. The second being social movements, resistance, and activism. The third, Pan-Africanism and Black internationalism. And lastly, land displacement and migration. As the article continues, the overlying topics that were just mentioned was actually broken down into 7 parts that I will share with you. The first part was, of course, slavery and emancipation, specifically in the U.S., and the experience of enslavement in North and South America, as well as the resistance tactics used by those who were enslaved. There were also speakers who highlighted the gendered experiences that occurred during enslavement inside of the U.S. Within this topic, enslavement outside of the U.S. was also discussed. So I feel like it's important to understand the entire picture when it comes to enslavement, so that it's not just limited to what we have been taught in school, which was slavery came, Black people, cotton, other crops, the South, Lincoln, Civil War. That is a overwhelmingly general understanding of the enslavement period, not only in the U.S. but globally. In part 2 of the categories listed in this article, it is under the heading Pan-Africanism and Perspectives Across the Diaspora. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the author defined the diaspora as a concept. So within this subheading, the communities in the different regions of the diaspora are to be discussed, as well as the correlation between Black German studies and racial issues and oppression in the United States. The third part that was identified and analyzed in the curriculum of the ADF program was Black communities and movements in the United States, not only highlighting the main Pan-Africanist movement or the Black Panther Party movement, but also correcting the narratives of the Black experiences that occurred in the United States. Because we have been told that we're supposed to understand the Black perspective in one lens, and that's it. But of course we know that there are so many different perspectives in identifying the Black experience in the U.S. So this section goes more in depth to discuss the importance and impact of performance and visual arts as it pertains to the Black experience, as well as how music was used as a form of resistance. Yes. As it continues on to part 4, the overheading is centering Afro-Latin American experiences. So traditionally in our textbooks, the article shares that there was not much information shared on the Afro-Latinx experience as it pertains to the African diaspora. However, the ADF program seeks to highlight a lot of the histories and cultural identities within the Afro-Latinx community. By incorporating the history of Afro-Latinx narratives would bring more visibility to the diaspora as a whole. Going on to part 5, this goes more in depth to teaching critically about the African diaspora. So how to integrate African diasporic studies into K-12 curriculum and making sure that it aligns with the state standards. And in this article and in this program, it was started in North Carolina. So, goes on to discuss how critical race theory can be a lens used to examine Eurocentric curriculum. Instead of pulling from only textbooks, students can now pull from their own experiences as being a part of the African diaspora or understanding the concepts within the African diaspora and how to affect social change. Moving on to the 6th part that was highlighted in this article. It was titled African Diaspora Centered Professional Development Reflections from Education and Curriculum Specialists. In this portion, it really just shared the understanding from what was taught in this whole series. So a lot of the teachers and administrators gave feedback to the African Diaspora Fellows Program. And they were just sharing how they want their classes to be culturally relevant and teaching African American history and politics through critical text and also different forms of resistance used, not only during the enslavement period, but all throughout history within the African diaspora. And the final part that was discussed in this article was the high school aspect and really assessing how to connect different subjects to topics of the African diaspora. 2 examples that were highlighted was connecting French class to the Haitian Revolution and how the overall experience was, as well as understanding what led to it, led to the Haitian Revolution. The second example was students analyzing African American responses to racial oppression over the last 200 years in English class specifically. From this article, I really did appreciate that the narrative is being discussed of incorporating the African diaspora into the K-12 curriculum, because I know personally there was not a lot of information that I know now that was shared to me prior to coming to Spelman College. So that is all I have on the themes, and I hope that you enjoyed. Bye.